that authenticity is really what is going to connect, because it makes people feel like they have common ground. That's what I'm thinking of. In fact, in general, even when this is back to like booking or cold calling, but even when I am calling people for the first time, I'll do my research on a place and just find out something about them that I connect with. It might, like, for instance, a winery. It might be that I see this beautiful location and I think, oh my goodness, that looks so peaceful. And so I might call and say, hey, your place already has this beautiful ambiance to it. I would love to partner with it and bring something that I hope my music would do the same.
Well, welcome to the podcast today. Our special guest is Tara Brueske, and she is calling in from beautiful Minnesota. You guys are having your spring, and it's warm.
Yes.
And I'm out in Utah, where it's supposed to be spring and warm, and it was about an hour ago, and now we've got rain and cold. So I'm a little jealous of consistent weather right now. But Tara has been a musician for pretty much your whole life.
I have. I really have.
She's done piano, she sings, she's taught all kinds of courses and taught a ton of people how to get gigs. You've taught online piano, you've taught people in person, you do one-on-one coaching. So I'm really excited about what we're going to get into today.
Thank you. And it's so good to be on here, Jason. Thank you for inviting me and looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, let's start all the way back at the first, because with your career, I always like to go right back to when you were a kid. When was that moment that you thought, oh my gosh, maybe I do like music? Or were you one of the kids like me that hated practicing piano and had a mean mom that made you practice every day?
No, I loved piano. So I'm actually from a musical family. I'm the youngest of three kids, and my mom was a pianist, organist, choir director. My dad was a pastor, but their love of music was so evident in our home. Like, we had records just playing all the time. Literally. And then if not that, then my mom was playing piano, practicing for something. So I would see her doing that. And I started playing piano when I was 3 years old. She said I started, plunking out some actual songs. But our family started singing together publicly when I was 6 years old. Wow. So we were already doing it. So it just seemed very normal to me. Like, I thought everybody did that. And of course, now I know, no, that's not true. But I think that coupled with the fact so that we had the opportunity from so young on, that by the time I was even 10, I remember writing this like in a journal or something, where I said, I want to be a singer when I grow up. So I already kind of had my goal like set at that young age. And it kept on. It kept being a part of my life as far as wanting to continue to be a singer. And I think it's because that opportunity, actually, when I was singing with my family, we were literally singing either with a piano as accompaniment, because my mom played, or we had a little tape recorder. So I know this dates me way back in the 70s, but we'd have a tape recorder of songs, and sometimes we'd sing with that as our accompanying background. And we sang in little churches all over northern Minnesota and actually Ontario, Canada. So I thought that was pretty cool, because, we could go to Canada at the time and it had different money and things were in French. And so the experience, I think, of just being able to be different places and be in front of people, that was such a part of my life that it seemed fun. And I loved making music together. And so I can't say I actually liked practicing piano, though. for lessons, because my mom did give me lessons too. But I think just that, because it was such a part of our family from so young, it seemed a very natural flow for me.
Got it. And did your family encourage you to take a career in music, or did they say, hey, you really should get a real job and go to college so you have some skills and then just enjoy music at home?
I know my family is rare in the fact that my parents were very supportive. I think in part, though, honestly, my dad was very much a visionary person. And even in his role, like I said, he was a pastor, but he actually stepped out of like parish work for 3 years so that our family could go singing. So he had a vision for something more. And he always has been that way, to kind of think outside of the box and not necessarily just do like, here's the set pattern. And I think his parents were a little surprised at that. But he certainly, because of, I think, his willingness, he was very encouraging of us kids. Just, he saw the gifts that were in my brothers and I. And I think he was very, and my mom too, just hugely supportive, so that we had this kind of clear path to go. I mean, I think they wanted us to get college education. That was because they both had college education. My dad, of course, had seminary too, but yeah, they were unusual that way, where they were really behind us. Because I know not every musician has that. A lot of times people, fight that from their own parents, and that's got to be really hard, actually.
I think it can be a lonely road. And then I think from a logical standpoint, oftentimes, if you do, look at salaries and numbers, if you're sitting with your college counselor,
Yes.
musician doesn't usually show up on that college counselor's, here's your list of, jobs that you can get that are going to, make you enough money to support a family, right?
I know. And especially I think for guys too, because like with my brothers, I do have my two brothers. One is a full-time musician. The other went into something else, but the one who's a full-time musician, yeah, I think that definitely went through his mind, even more of that supporting a family,
Yep.
type of thing. But we both pursued it.
Awesome. So you did go to college, it sounds like then. So
I
did
did.
you study music, or did you have this alternative thing you studied?
No, I studied music, and like a lot of musicians I've talked to now since that time, I was a performance major,
Okay.
and a lot of other performance majors, even that I graduated with, years ago, are not in music because a lot of them didn't find a way. Now I understand why, because in fact, if there was anything I was going to tell somebody, it's just simply that if you are going for music as a performance in college, get a business degree too. Because I knew a lot about music when I graduated. I mean, I'm very grateful for theory, music history, arranging, orchestra, all that kind of stuff. But I had zero idea how to really run a business. And I didn't realize I was getting into the music business, even though, of course, even back then in the 80s, 90s, it was called the music business.
Right.
But I didn't think of it that way.
Well, I went into marketing. I lasted 2 days in the music program and I dropped out of my college because they told me that I'd have to go to school for 3 years before I could learn to arrange and do orchestration. And I was already
Mm.
doing all that. And I kind of thought, this is insane to go back and learn about half notes for the next, 2 weeks. And so I actually asked the professor if I could help him teach, just to try and give
Mm.
some challenge, or, and he got all upset with me of how dare I, how dare I
Wow.
assume that I could, do what he's doing. And it was the
Yeah.
best decision I ever made. I ended up walking over to the business school and took a marketing class, and I liked it. But what's interesting, as you said, that a lot of people that do music performance don't do anything in that. I can think of almost probably 95% of the people that I graduated in marketing with didn't end up doing marketing.
Oh, interesting.
So I think it happens the same way. And you talked about learning the music business. I've got several friends who are doctors and dentists. These people that you'd think, oh, they're going to own their own practice and they're going to go
Yeah.
do well as a doctor. And I can't tell you how many of them, when we had conversations at night, some together, and they kind of open up and they say, you know what, the saddest thing is, I learned how to do a doctor, and I can do all, they can rattle off all the crazy things, pull eyeballs out and fix, just
Yes.
crazy things. And yet they have no clue how to come in and run their business with the practice. They're
Mm-hmm.
completely, pretty much helpless.
Yeah.
And hence they end up in, getting into a lot of financial trouble, and it takes them. Anyway, that's a whole, it's interesting how learning business, whether you're music or a doctor
Something.
or
Yeah.
whatever, I think there's a lot of principles, whether you're going to own your own business or not, that a business, some of those business classes, not all of them, there's some that were waste.
Right.
But in general, I think it does teach you to kind of think a little bit bigger picture, a little more strategy than maybe just what's in front of you, and you're just trying to stay at that real tactical level of just boots on the ground, right?
Yeah, and I think just figuring out how to get from, point A to point B, because if you want to perform, you have to figure out, how are you going to perform? How, are you going to be with some kind of company? Like, I do know there are musicians that get hired by orchestras,
Yep.
even in, more the classical world, even in opera and things too, that people will actually, kind of almost like signing with or having a job with a corporation. But that's by far and large not a good portion of musicians. And so I think it's just, yeah, learning these practical things of, well, what does it mean for me to get sales? Because I have a product that I'm offering.
Yep.
And I didn't understand that this was, a lot of different things I could use as a product, or a service really is what a lot of we do in music, like a service that you're offering to people. And so, yeah, those practical steps I had to learn the hard way. But I always feel like, man, if I could do it, anybody can.
And just like any industry or any business, I think who and having those opportunities to meet people. And I'm sure, I know you've done a lot of coaching on helping people to get gigs. I'm curious what your take on, is getting to know a certain person, or is it just putting yourself out there and calling lots of people? For somebody who's introverted, that's going to be terrifying if they've got to like pick up a phone and like introduce themselves. And, so how would you say that works typically when it is successful?
And I did that. I did the cold calling. I am an introvert, and it was terrifying. But I think usually what I talk to people about is it is building relationships. You're trying, like any kind of sales, as you know, it is building relationships with people. Those are how you get return customers. And so kind of even just looking at it that way and realizing, I think even for introverts, if they're scared to do it, is that, again, it can be one-on-one. What used to freak me out is if somebody said to me, well, you could go to these networking events, and I'm thinking, and do what? Like, I don't want to have to go to something and then start introducing myself. Now, actually, it's funny because it wouldn't bother me to do that. But back then I was very shy. And, but I think it's just, there's ways of doing things and reaching out to people and then being prepared. Like for people with booking, when I coach people, a lot of times we'll start with a script. I mean, something as simple as a script that's written out. It might be something they use on the phone. It could be something they use in an email, something they can tweak, but just having a plan and then including certain things, and keeping it short and succinct, and then just follow up. I think in the business, a lot of people tend to give up because they assume if they don't hear back from somebody, like in booking, that they just assume, oh, it's a rejection. But the reality is nowadays, especially, you just think of how many emails, like if you get emails, how many emails do you get in a day? Just period, like any of us.
300.
Yeah, I know. And so I'm thinking, okay, so someone who's booking, if you're sending an email to them, how many are they even getting from just musicians per day? I mean, I don't know the answer to that fully, but I just know there's a lot. So if they might click through it, or they might not even click on it right the first time, again, that's not actually a rejection. It's just sheer, like, they don't have the time at first.
Not right. Yeah. I've heard, I was listening to a Dan Kennedy podcast, and it was an old call from back, 20 years ago. And there was a guy that had done a lot of sales training and coaching. And he says, he said, you're making all these calls. And the reality is, if you're lucky, maybe 5% of the people you're calling might have a need where they're ready to buy from you. If you're super, super lucky, but the other 95, they don't need it right now, but you're planting a seed.
Exactly. And I just have to say this because it just reminded me in my own mind. When I first started doing this, it was pre-internet. So I was taking the yellow pages. I was taking, newspapers where sometimes they'd have these like sections where, I don't know, there'd be advertisements for things and you could find a phone number or something. My point is, I did a lot of research ahead of time. Now, of course, we've got the internet, so you can do it quite quickly. And then I just started cold calling and keep doing it, and then you might get one bite, like you said. But that bite can also turn into, like in booking, it could turn into 10 gigs. It could turn into gigs every year. I literally have places I've been booking with for now 20 years.
Wow.
And they're still booking. And so it's all this return, on my investment of the calling. Mm-hmm. And so it's really, I want to encourage people that even whatever you're doing in music, that it takes time to build it. And I know sometimes, we want things immediately in our world, and things can happen faster too. I'm not saying they can't, but in general, building relationships with people does take time.
Yep. Just
like it does with friendships.
Well, and I want to rewind back. So you talked about calling all of these people. And so a lot of people would interpret that as selling, right? Or trying to sell yourself or sell your thing. How do you help people overcome this idea that the word sell or sales is like a 4-letter word that is naughty and you shouldn't say it, I mean,
Right.
how do you help people to get past that idea?
It's trying to get past, or it's trying to get the mindset, first of all, of that you are also coming to partner with somebody on something. And when you have a product, you think of what is it that you're selling? Is it, if you're going to do a concert, for instance, it's a concert. You're
Hmm.
selling a service, and what are you giving to people in that concert? Well, a lot of times, you're giving people a time to just be, to let down, to have fun, maybe to cry. I mean, it's an emotional response a lot of times you're looking for, but it is something that is needed in our culture and something we as musicians get to give. And if you can think of it like this is something you're giving to people that they don't just have opportunity. I have talked to more musicians, like we're so used to just doing music all the time. We listen to it, but there's a lot of people in life that hardly have music as part of their everyday being. And so when they hear a concert, they go to a summer park concert or something, or get tickets to a show, it's a huge deal. And we get to be on the end of giving that, of something that's really encouraging to people.
Yeah.
And to kind of get that around, like this is something that's people actually want and desire and would love.
Well, and I think part of it is just believing in yourself that you have something to give and to share. And
Yes.
and I think part of it is a confidence thing. I know for me, especially as I was younger, you have a tendency to get that, they call it imposter syndrome. I've heard people call it that, or you don't think you're good enough, or you're not good enough to do that, to be on stage. As you're working through, I mean, you've worked with a lot of people doing gigs. You've been doing it a long time. How do
Mm-hmm.
you overcome that idea that, I'm not good enough, or, that just, it's not even that anybody said that to you, but I think a lot of times it's just like that little evil angel on the other shoulder that tells you, oh, you can't do this.
Well, and it kind of goes along with, I'll just say this. I used to, when I was doing gigs, I would always, when I was younger, like I'll say 20s for sure, I would always be concerned about what the audience was thinking about me instead of what I could give to them. And I think sometimes too, to realize, again, turn the table a little bit, like don't go into something saying, oh, are they going to think I'm good enough? Give what you have from your heart, be authentic, be where you're at. I mean, we're all at different stages. Like, yes, I perform better now than I did 25 years ago.
Yep.
But people actually listened to me 25 years ago. And also to remember that if you think about, like, for all of us, first of all, live music is amazing. When you go hear people live, it's just different than, listening to a recording. But also, we all have if you said to somebody, like, who's your favorite artist? Well, I don't know, but if I get asked, that's like, I don't have one, I have a lot. And it depends what genre you're talking. So
Yes.
the point is, there is room for the uniqueness that every single musician is going to bring to the table. And especially, I don't care whether you're an instrumentalist or whether you're a vocalist, you have something that's uniquely yours. The way you do it is uniquely yours, and it's going to connect with certain people. Yes, there are some it's not going to connect with. To this day, I have people that maybe don't, connect with what I do. It's fine. But
Yep.
there are people that do. And it's about finding those people through the years and through the time. And everyone is capable of having, people, especially if they're willing to just continue to learn and grow in their own music and be authentic with their audience. They're going to have people connecting.
Yeah. Well, you talk about connecting, and as I've done, performed for a lot of people and written stuff, and I'm still learning every day. I don't feel like I'm even good yet. But
It's always, we're all learning. We're all in that process.
I think one of the hardest things to realize, and as I self-evaluate myself, is the connecting with that audience. When I started performing, I even think back, almost clear back to piano recitals, when I was a kid, and you're just terrified to death that you're going to mess up that one note that you've struggled with, and you're praying, oh, please, just let me get through that. And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't, and you just hope you weren't that kid that had to have the music brought up to you to get through the song, right? But I
Right.
can remember that fear, and I think as I started writing music and wanting to share it with other people, I still clung on to this whole idea that, okay, I wrote a song, but it has to be perfect. And even when I started
Mm.
doing the music, I would it would even critique myself of like, oh, but that book that I published and did, it has like 2 spots that I missed a note and it was just wrong, or, and as I've done storybooks, there's maybe 300 pages in this thing, but oh my gosh, we forgot a period on that one thing. And somebody's going to think I'm no good because I left a period out on the, and I think the sooner as an artist that I was able to, and it just as a person to recognize the flaws and the mistakes are what connected people with me. It wasn't the fact that I could play this thing really good. In fact, I almost feel like that when I've been too polished, that they don't remember it. They don't connect with you. And I don't know how, if there was any advice I was giving myself, I would just say, look, go screw up, go like really just mess up bad. And at very least, the audience is going to feel bad for you and they're going to like you just because they want to encourage you and help you do it. Right.
And I always think too, when you, like, if any of us, to turn the table a little bit, like, what if you're in the audience and you saw someone mess up? Would you be the person who's like critiquing them and going, oh, they're stupid? I don't think most of us would. I think most of us would probably be like, oh my word, I hope something, there's probably more empathy in a lot of us than we give ourselves credit for. And so our audience is going to have that too. And you're right. If something happens, like I literally had, this was about 2 years ago, I was playing an electric piano and it had one of those stands on that are like plastic on the part of the piano, and I had a 3-ring binder on it and I was playing and singing, and the whole thing crashed. Like just fell off and crashed. So I just got up. I said, hold on a minute, you guys. I said, this just fell down. I went and picked it back up, put it back up. And I said, I was just trying to see if any of you were awake. And the thing is, or just tell people if something goes wrong. That's what I always say. If you literally have something go wrong, like your mic doesn't work or something, like tell the audience, just tell them what's going on. They can handle that, and so can we. I mean, that's being real.
Yep.
So
I still have nightmares from, I was playing a musical number in church as a kid. Remember when we used to have all our papers and there'd be like 9 pages?
Yeah.
And of course the AC kicks on in the middle of the song and all of a sudden, there goes your music. And
right.
I don't know. I just remember that as a kid. I was like, oh my gosh, I'd never do that again. And but you know what? I think I had more people come up to me. I mean, people saw that, and the fact that I was able to kind of halfway make it okay. And I think it connected people, because I mean, the reality is everybody out in that audience has flaws just like we do. And
absolutely.
And if you're perfect, you're not going to be like them, and the connection will be there.
And think how scared most people are even to get up in front of anybody. I had a gig literally 2 weeks ago that I had, somebody was going to introduce me and I said, oh, you can use my microphone. Oh, no, I don't want to use a mic. And I was thinking, it's just a microphone. But, so it just, I think we've got to just give ourselves credit as we're just people and so are others. And to see that authenticity is really what is going to connect, because it makes people feel like they have common ground. That's what I'm thinking of. In fact, in general, even when I do, this is back to like booking or cold calling, but even when I am calling people for the first time, I'll do my research on a place and just find out something about them that I connect with. It might, like, for instance, a winery. It might be that I see this beautiful location and I think, oh my goodness, that looks so peaceful. And so I might call and say, hey, your place already has this beautiful ambiance to it. I would love to partner with it and bring something that I hope my music would do the same. So it's trying to find a connection point. When we meet people, you think of like the first time you meet somebody who you become friends with, it's because you had a connection point, something in common. And that's what we're trying to find.
As you're talking about making calls to these people, one of the biggest problems I see almost every salesperson make. I mean, I was in the banking world and I used to coach over 50 loan officer people that were supposed to be great salespeople. Most of them are terrible at that. But what was funny is I started learning more and more about what being a good salesperson is. It's about building that relationship. And typically, you talked about going to these networking events. People go to these networking events and they take a stack of business cards and they collect all of these, and then they just go in, they sit there forever and they don't do anything with them. And it just boggled my mind. I mean, when I owned my software company, we used to have to pay thousands of dollars to go to these conferences to get business cards. And
Yeah.
I would go with these other people that I knew in the booths that were trying to sell people as well. And they'd collect, a dozen cards, and I'd go home with like 80 cards, and I'd write notes on the back of them. And, this person's dog's name, they like dogs. This one has 2 kids. And their one name is Lindsay. And I would write stuff. And then on my flight home, or within that 2 days before I'd forget about it, I would send an email. I would make notes and put them in my contact thing. And I would send them an email at very least to
Yeah.
have some sort of connection. And if I had a picture of them, I'd include the picture, and all of a sudden they may be getting 20 or 30 emails from some people, and then the other 100 people didn't email them.
Right.
But now I'm that one guy that did something that stood out. It was, oh my gosh, he plays the piano, or I send him one of my songs. And I was
Yes.
selling banking software, and I'd send him a piano song, but just finding that connection.
It is. Because like I say, we do it all the time with friendships, and people, even when they date, people talk about that on dates. It's like, well, it's a connecting point. You find something in common, and that's what we're kind of trying to find, something in common.
Well, and then continuing to care. I think there's definitely this. I think the normal sales, role that people get in their minds, it's like this bad thing where it's this slimy guy trying to like take advantage of you and rip you off. And the reality is, I just want to be your friend. And if there's something I can solve a problem or help you in some way, now it's helpful. You're not really selling. It's just, hey, you needed something, and I'm able to help you with that. Let me help.
That when you say solve a problem, that actually reminds me too that sometimes with musicians, we think that it's about the salesy thing, but oftentimes, like let's just say there's an event going on, somebody has a gala, or they're putting on a nonprofit thing, or maybe like for a lot of the senior citizen places I play at, they want to just entertain people. And so by you calling, by you being a part of it, you're giving them, you're solving a problem for them that they weren't sure they were going to be able to solve.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other thing I found is that while musicians, we might know a lot of other musicians, people that are not musicians or don't have that as part of their family don't always just know musicians. So we are solving problems.
Well, and I think almost everybody that's been in the music business, or at least writes songs or performs in some way, there's those handful of times where you've really connected with somebody, or you get that email and you had no idea you helped somebody, through a hard time, or, parent died, and, your music popped up, and, or you had somebody that was, going through a divorce or contemplating suicide, and those types of things, I think, for me have meant more than the selling of the dollar sales ever.
Yeah.
And I think the more I've tried to solve and share my stuff, the more I feel I've gotten paid back, and the money is just like it. The money's nice to have, and you need that to be okay. But there's a lot cooler payday that I think if you do share music that you don't realize until you've done it a while.
Yeah, and I think it's because it becomes purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
I know for myself, even I'll just tell you this, that I started singing at senior places like independent living, assisted living, memory care about 20 years ago. And about 10 years ago, people would ask me, where I was singing. And I felt embarrassed to say, oh, well, I'm at these nursing homes, or I'm at these, assisted living. And now after all these years, I just see what an incredible blessing it is to people who cannot get out places anymore, people who are not in their right mind. I had my own mother. I just lost her this last January, and she was in a nursing home at the end and had dementia. And so now, even firsthand experience, it's like I see what a blessing music is to those people. I've seen people in memory care where they're just, like nothing, and then they perk up on a song and they're singing along. And to know that you've, touched somebody's soul in that way, you can't beat that.
Yeah, and I think until you go through, I'm going through the same thing with my mother-in-law right now. They just a couple months ago went to a nursing home, and it's awful. Dementia is awful, but just
It is.
when your body gets to the point where it doesn't function, and they want to, but it just
It doesn't.
And one thing that I guess I didn't realize until somebody really close to me was in that situation is, I mean, our family goes every week, and we hang out at least once a week, and we're the only people there. There's probably 100 residents in there that are grandmas and moms and dads to somebody. And
we found that too.
There's like three or four cars in the parking lot. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, I don't know. It's just, it's been it's definitely made me rethink the whole idea of serving in that world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just all I know is it is a blessing to people that can't, and it's people who have lived full lives,
Oh yeah.
you know. So, and I just find too when I'm bringing back music now, it's things that they hear that because I play music from like 40s, 50s, 60s, and so it's stuff that they grew up with,
Yep.
and it's bringing back those memories, which we all love.
Oh
We're
yeah.
all like nostalgic music, so.
Yep. No, that's awesome. So I'm curious if you could go back, let's rewind back 20, 30 years, or when you're sitting, just
Yeah.
getting started in music, if
Hmm.
you could give yourself some advice to help yourself, or, a whole classroom of people just like you were, what would you want to say to that person?
Well, I think that one thing would just be, again, to try to get some business training, even if it's not a full degree, but even getting, just getting like nowadays too, there's so many biz coaches. Um, in fact, any kind of coach, whether it's vocal coaching or you've got an instrument and you're getting a coach, first of all, it's going to help you. You're also going to have someone you're accountable to, and also someone that can encourage you,
Yep.
because you need that encouragement along the way. And I know that, speaking as a coach myself, that like I love giving encouragement to my students if I can see them keep going because of something we talked about or they discover something. Anyway, that's one thing. But I also think just this thing of being uh willing to be, the thought of what your purpose is, and with music and serving other people in your music, rather than, again, to just think about like what they're going to think about you. Because to approach it, I think I just wasted time in my head thinking about what people were thinking about me or where I should be. And the other thing is too, I think, just to realize that there can be a lot of streams of income of music, which I know you found an amazing one yourself. Well, several actually, but and to not be afraid of that. And it doesn't mean, and also like teaching, don't assume that if you're a performer and you teach. I used to hate when they would say that old saying, like, if you're a performer, you do, but if you can't, you teach. It's like, well, no, that's not necessarily true. There's all kinds of ways to be utilizing your music, from writing to performing, to recording, to doing voiceover work, to being with other musicians. I mean, even for me in performing, I do solo gigs, but I also am with my brother in a duo. And then I'm also in a tribute show right now with like 11 or 10 other people. And so all different, even just in the performing stuff, there's different things. And it's really fun. There's also a lot of variety, and to not be overly concerned about, like, I just have to do it this way. Like, be able to be, I wasn't that flexible. So if you can at all learn to be flexible younger, it helps. And just to know that there's a lot of different ways.
Yep.
That, what the thing in the industry, at least I felt like in the 80s, so I'm speaking from back then, but it was like you try to get a record deal. That was kind of the main goal. And then you tour, and, that's how you're well known as a musician. And to me nowadays, there's just so many other ways, even with the internet, to be able to utilize your music. I think there is opportunity. It's different than maybe what people always think of, but it's okay if it takes time. That's the other thing. It's not going to just come. Nothing good comes fast, really fast.
Well, and I think one thing is, if I was in that room with you giving that advice, one of the big mistakes I see people make is they don't try to build those relationships, or even collect the emails. People will perform, and, trying to engage with that audience. So, I mean, you're performing in that one time, but if you could somehow collect the names and emails or the text messages, and you could follow up and help in some way, and then connect more, you're almost, I almost feel like it's crazy to not, and maybe that's a business thing in me of, you're taught to, hey, you got this opportunity, but you realize that you're going to actually benefit by, doing the other 95% of the 5% of that first gig and getting somebody on stage. But if you don't do anything after that, you may as well, that's not a business. I think a business is something that you have to be able to continue to have a customer base and serve. Otherwise, you're just kind of a street vendor that is there for the one event, and
Right.
that's it, and go get another street vendor gig. That's not a business. You couldn't sell that to anybody. There's no value in it. But now you get the list of names that like
Mhm.
you, and now it just opens up a whole nother world of opportunities where maybe you can introduce them to another singer that you like, and share and serve. Maybe it's not even to make money, but it's just to help that individual that you've connected with even more.
Well, and I think even when you say that about the connecting, or using the opportunity, um, I was thinking even like with uh, other singers, like connect. Well, I know what I was going to say. You have different kinds of customers too in music. You've got the people that you're actually singing for. They're
Mhm.
one kind of customer. And then you've got the people you're booking with. That's kind of another type of customer. But yeah, all of them, however, you can continue to build relationships, get info from them. And I know the other thing I was thinking of, yeah, is just because you kind of alluded to it with like another musician, not being afraid of partnering with other musicians, not being afraid of giving the names of other musicians to people when you can't do something, because that's the other thing that if I was going to give anybody advice, that I compared myself way too much in my 20s, in my 30s. And I had a friend say to me, it was really the best piece of advice, even though he wasn't trying to give me advice, but he basically, I was talking about some musician at the time, and I was kind of frustrated because she had gotten all these accolades and I hadn't, which is just stupid that I was even, but that's where I was. And he said, Tara, why can't you just be happy for her? And I thought, oh, I guess I can't be, can I? And I've learned now that being happy and being supportive of other musicians never depletes you as a person. It only makes your life bigger, and actually even gives you more opportunity, and it causes you to look at life with more opportunity instead of this scarcity where I'm just always trying to grab at something.
Yeah. I, as you're talking about, being scared or worried about helping, what other people think. I almost feel like, as if I look back on like my school career, high school, even into junior high, it seems like in elementary school, kids, I just had a kid just finish sixth grade, and it's so fun to
Ah,
see how energetic they are, and how they're excited about, they have conversations. And my wife teaches sixth grade, and she engages all
fine.
these kids, and they share, they call it good news, bad news, and they share every day, or once a week, they share something, or they have an opportunity to share with the class. And they're not scared to talk. And it's like this, almost like this little family unit. And then somehow, somewhere in junior high and high school, I feel like if I look back in my classes, I was terrified to speak up. If and the teacher,
Me
oh
too.
my gosh, and I don't know where that happens, and along the way. And there's some people that just are, whether you call them loudmouths or whatever, they just don't seem to shut up sometimes. But
Right.
most of us, I think, were terrified. To the point where I think the public speaking classes that are taught in the colleges, that's actually, speaking in public is one of the biggest fears. I mean, some people would rather die, like
Yes.
actually die, than actually have to speak in front of somebody.
I
And
know.
I don't know where we lose that, but I think a lot of that stems back to somewhere in that junior high or high school or school
Yeah.
time, when somebody got shut down or told they were stupid, or there was that one bully in the
Yes.
room that was not nice. And I think the reality is 99% of the people that are in the room are the empathetic, that want to see you succeed on stage, that want to see you be
Yes.
successful. And for whatever reason, we kind of cave to that one
The one.
moment in our, maybe this should be a psychology podcast. I don't know. I don't know anything about psychology, so don't listen to me. Um, but I do think there's, probably most of us, if we look back, there was probably that moment. And by the time you get into a lot of those high school classes, even in college, you don't dare speak up in class because you might be wrong and you're too scared to say anything.
Yeah, I think too. I think a lot of musicians, I think we tend to be people who are we analyze, and we're probably introspective, and maybe really highly sensitive. I mean, I can say I am myself, but I know a lot of other musicians who are too. And
Oh,
so, yeah, that those, like the one negative thing, I actually hear that a lot when I teach people that sing, and they'll say, "Oh, somebody told them they were too loud, or someone told them they sounded awful," and it's just it's hard to hear that, but I think that self-consciousness, when we start being self-conscious of ourselves, like you say, junior high, high
Yep.
school, I think that really is a time. And depending on if we have a great teacher or some teacher around us or a coach,
Yep.
again, I think, I know my voice teacher in college for me made a huge difference because, and I'm still in contact with her. She just turned 90 this year and I just saw her, which was great. But she basically, like, she didn't try to put labels on me, even at college. She basically wanted to just let me sing and help me and encourage and nurture. And she taught me a lot, but she was that encouragement that I needed. And that's why I still come back to, like, if you are a musician, find a coach. And it may take a while too, because not every coach is great either. But I do think it's helpful because then you have also the camaraderie of somebody else in music with you that understands, and to get to know other musicians as well. We have so many online ways now, and even this podcast that you have is an encouragement to musicians just to know they're not alone.
Right.
So,
Well, you just made me thinking of American Idol, when people are the criticism. And actually, I think there's been so many good things with American Idol, but as a musician, I think we watch that and it's so easy to critique, and the ones that were not good, and yet they don't know that they're not good. And it's almost one of those where, does it help or hurt some people's willingness to maybe go out of the box? Because if I'm not as good as Kelly Clarkson or whoever, some of these superstars, well, then I'm not good enough to be a musician. And I think the cool thing is, in this day and age, with the internet and with some business sense and building a list, you can be successful, financially in the music business. It might not be singing. You may not have that voice to be an American Idol winner.
right.
But there are thousands of other career paths that support, that are in the music business. So if you love music, I wish I'd known that, and recognized that 20, 30 years ago.
Well, I know. I mean, even in the role of coaching, whether it's coaching someone how to write songs or, maybe how to even, like I do, some booking gigs, but it could be other aspects. Maybe it's like, how to build websites for musicians, and that's a part of that music world. I mean, there's so many things, but yeah, I don't know. I do think that so much of the music business, and any business really, is simply, are you willing to work at it? Like, actually put in the skills. I mean, I know that as a child, like for myself, I know that I had obvious talent in piano and voice. But if I hadn't gotten a lot of the training, if I hadn't worked at things hard, practiced, all through the years, I would have stayed pretty mediocre, and who knows? And I've seen other people who maybe from the beginning didn't look like they had as much talent, but then because they worked at it, they honed their skills and things, they kept practicing, no matter what it is. It's like that, to me, and perseverance is far more the keys that are going to make you have a successful career, really, of anything, but of just being willing to put some time in and work towards something that you actually want to, that you're willing to say, I am going to put the time into this. Yeah. And in music, people usually do it because they do love it. Do they love every aspect? No, I don't love having to create invoices and contracts and things like that. To be honest, I pretty much hate those things, but I have to do that to get to the things that I do love. And so, but to really enjoy my work, that is something that I have been able to do for it's been over 30 years now, which is really amazing. So.
And I love asking this question. I know we're about out of time, but
yeah.
What would be your definition of a successful musician? Today, having had a 30+ year career in the business, what do you consider a successful musician?
I think doing a lot of the things actually just that bring other people joy and yourself, like creating a purpose, being purposeful with your music. Also being able to still do your music, like in different ways. And it might look different. The beautiful part is it may look way different than you thought it might look. Like what I'm doing now at 54 is way different than I thought at 21.
Yeah.
but I love what I'm doing. And then also being able to actually financially, though, being able to take care of yourself too, and being able to have a business that is growing and continues to support itself, because the other thing is, if you're just struggling, financially, where you can't, and 2020 was just so hard for all of us. But I do think that being successful, is having some of those things that, to me, it's having some of the goals or the dreams that you have thought about. It just might look a little bit different, and being willing to kind of ebb and flow with that, but still be pursuing a general move towards the things you want to do. For me, even feeling like I actually feel like a successful musician, not necessarily monetarily compared to people. I'm not making millions, but I'm enjoying my life and I love my work. And, to put people spend, 8 to 10 hours a day at a job that sometimes they hate. And to me, if you can really like your job, I think that's, and get paid, I think that's being successful.
Absolutely. No, it's fantastic. I love that. So Tara, I'd love to go deeper with you on gigs. Maybe we'll get you back on another podcast. I know we're way over time. You've had
right.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think,
thank you.
I think more people need to think of, I love that self-inflection and the coaching, and just that idea, those ideas that you shared have been incredible. So I really hope it helps a lot of people out there.
Yeah. Yes. Please don't give up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my hope is with this podcast is I've seen too many musicians that thought they wanted to do music, and then they've just given up on their dream, and they have something amazing to share with the world. And it just breaks my heart every time I have a friend that I find out they've, put their CDs down in the basement, and
because it's going to keep coming back. That's the thing.
You can't.
I've seen that with people. In fact, a friend that I've coached in the last year kind of always had that. And then she was in a different role. She was kind of teaching music, but more in a different way. And she still wanted to do it more full time with performing. And now she's come to it because full circle, and she loves what she's doing now. And, just to see that it's like, if that passion has been in your heart that long, it's not going to go away.
Yep. So it makes you happy, you're going to keep coming back to it. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Tara, if people want to go find out more about you, where should they go?
Probably the easiest place is tarabrueske.com. It's my website. I'm also on Facebook, on Instagram. Facebook, I think, is at Tara B Musician. Instagram is at Tara Brueske Music. But awesome. I can give you the links for that too.
We're gonna stick all those in the show notes. And for those that are, if you go out on her website, I know you've got some great courses, but you've got several interviews you've done on other podcasts that I know have been really interesting as well, on totally different topics than kind of where we left this. So, but I've loved it. So thank you. I think you've left a gift for the world with this one. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Jason.
Here we go. Hang on. So ask me that question again.
So when you have sheet music for people, if you're going to sell it, are you putting it on your website or to a place like Sheet Music Plus or someplace like that where it's online?
Yeah, I think the Sheet Music Pluses and there's a lot of other services where you can get your music out there, and a lot of the big publishers, that's where they're going to end up. But if your goal is to try and make money or have the ability to even share your music with a lot of people, you have to have control of that. And so if, a lot of what I'll do when I first started, and for years I've done this, and I still do it today, is I will share songs for free all the time with people. Because realistically, if I email somebody and say, hey, come buy my sheet music for $4, if there's no connection, if they're not excited about it, they're not going to come buy it. And there's
That's
1,000 other pieces of music they can go get. And so if I have it on that Sheet Music Plus, maybe it's $2 and I get maybe getting 10%, and you get 20 cents for that, if that. And so financially, I don't think that's a really great way to do it if you're new and trying to grow. And I almost think of it like this: if you're walking into a Walmart and let's say you had a product that was at Walmart, and you're walking down the halls, my guess is you're going to walk right past that and not have a clue that it's there. You may love that candy bar or that yogurt or whatever it is they got back on the shelf there. But if you don't know you love it, or that's why Costco and Sam's they do those, here, try this. They have the little
taste test,
the cute grandma out there that has you to come taste the thing, and then they get you to buy like a $40 box of stuff you really didn't think you needed, going home. But I'm sure that's got to be an amazing business. I mean, run the ROI on that, and I'm sure it's huge. That's the only reason why they're doing that. But think about it from you as a musician. If you're hoping somebody's going to find your music in the Walmart store or whatever big store it's in, it's not going to happen. And none of the workers in that Walmart are going to be as friendly as that nice grandma at the Costco that's going to have you try the thing.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like if you're new, even though building a website is, it's really intimidating, there's a lot of really good services out there. I like WordPress. There's Shopify. There's lots of people that you can hire to help you with that. There's lots of YouTube videos to learn to do it yourself as well.
Well, and I have the website through Bandzoogle, and I know they have a lot more on there now too that we can do, even with like, besides the shop. But what am I trying to say? Well, they've just got things like you can offer from online there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's why I was thinking, like, I wondered, like, is that a better way of doing it? So
I think having something is better than nothing. So if you don't have the time, or you don't think you can do the website, by all means, stick a handful of songs out on the music, Sheet Music Plus or whatever the things are. And I think that's great. But the reality is almost nobody's going to find you. And even if you think about this, even if I sent all of my people that loved my music, so let's call it your super fans, you send them there to go get the music, who's got the list of people and knows whether they bought? It's Sheet Music Plus. They're not going to share that list with you.
That's so true.
You're not going to be able to follow up at all.
That's true.
So
that's a good point.
I think honestly that, building a fan base, and if you want to have lasting impact, you've got to connect with your audience, care enough to get their name and their email, and then care enough to put something in place. Maybe it's just a simple email once a month with $20 MailChimp or something like that. There's some really amazing tools. I've kind of done for the last 20 years, been doing this, and used to do consulting on these fancy CRM systems that would cost thousands and thousands of dollars. I still use one that cost me like $8,000 or $9,000 a year. And I'm just like, if there'd just be one that could do it as good as, and there's actually some really great tools out there now that have taken, and they'll add in, you can do emails, you can do sales funnels, you can do, connect your Facebook account and your Instagram and all of your ads that you're doing all into one place. And it's, 1/100th of what I was paying back in the day, when there was just, you had to get 10 different companies to do all this stuff, and hopefully they all played nice. And it is a great time to be a musician. I mean, if somebody wants to find out about that, email me, and I'd be happy to point you to 2 or 3 really great resources. Anyway, does that answer your question on there?
Yeah, it does. It's it's kind of something I know it's in the long-term goals. Mm-hmm. Like right now, when you were talking before just about like your own mom too, with my mom dying, I'm actually doing now more caretaking of my dad too, even though his mind is good, but just, it's in a different season of life right now. So
absolutely. Let me let my dog out. I got one more thing.
Okay.
All right, go. Got a kid that just pulled in the driveway and he's freaking out.
Oh no.
That's scratching, and I guess I should put the dog on the camera, and then be a hit.
There you go.
So you've got your website right now, and it's just because I noticed you're not selling a whole lot. So one of the other things that I've felt like most, and I lived this, because we used to have to hand program. I was paying like $5,000 to have some guy custom program this thing where I could have tables and rows and have it sell my music. And there's some WordPress plugins that are right out of the box that are free, and that you can, get a basic WordPress site that probably only costs you anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000. And then you can do it yourself. It used to not be the case. I used to have somebody with nerdy glasses that was way smarter than me program and fix every time I wanted to make a change. It was awful.
I had WordPress about 5 years ago, and I hated it because it was so not user friendly.
And it's you left right about the time when there was started to be some stuff that made it very easy to do.
Okay.
I use Elementor. There's a couple of other things, and essentially it's this drag and drop. I want a text box, there's a text box right there. I want a picture there, boom, there's a picture. You want a link or a button, there's a button. If it's super easy to do now. But
Okay.
I would say it was about 5-6 years ago when it finally got to the point where, I mean, if I go back 10 years, we were still hand coding things, and
Yeah, I just
it was
and
awful.
like, well, like in the plugins, I'd try to put a plugin and then it didn't really make sense. And I didn't know what I was doing anyway because I've learned a lot about tech,
Yeah.
but it's not like I know how to code. So
Well, and you know what? I feel like if you need to learn how to code, that's too much. I mean, I had a whole software company. We had people in India, and I mean, I've been down the crazy programmer path, so I've got too much experience in that world. But for the normal artist, you need to be able to map out the strategy of what you want. So if you're wanting to sell a songbook, well, you know, funnels are one of the best. I mean, go watch Russell Brunson's ClickFunnels stuff, and he'll get you all jazzed up about ClickFunnels. And ClickFunnels is awesome. I've run well over $1 million through ClickFunnels, but there's a lot of other really good programs that can do the same thing. Maybe not, each one of them is going to have something that does a little bit better. And the key is are you going to put in the work, like you were talking about earlier? Are you going to put in the effort to learn how to make that program do the thing? And the reality is, even when I was doing fancy consulting gigs for banks and charging $50,000, the reality was the software that they thought was going to solve all their salespeople's problems in life, if they couldn't take a piece of paper and put it on a desk and say, okay, when somebody asks for a mortgage loan, we're going to send them this letter in the mail, and then we're going to do this email, and just move this thing down a process. If they couldn't do that on paper with one person, they certainly weren't going to be able to automate the thing. And it would just make their, inability to have some process and follow it even worse, because now they'll blame it all on, oh, the software just doesn't do all that. The software's every one of the softwares that are out there, there's problems with every single one of them. And they're going to keep getting better, but you've got to come up with a strategy, and then you can make it work. Even if it's WordPress and you got to hire a programmer, which you don't anymore, but it could band-aid and do what you needed if you really cared enough to make it work.
And now all my courses are on this Member Vault place, which is where I host it. Like, I know a lot of people use Kajabi and others, but so, and I do have things like set up there that once people join, there's automation happening there, which of course, taking the time to set up the automation was what took the biggest amounts of time.
Oh yeah.
So,
but then you forget how the automation worked, and
sometimes I do. It's like, wait a minute, I set this up before. And so anyway.
So are you familiar with Go High Level?
No.
So Go High Level is, okay, so if you've heard of ClickFunnels, and you've heard of WordPress, and you've heard of probably Infusionsoft, MailChimp, or some of these CRMs.
I used to be on MailChimp.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on Flowdesk now.
Perfect.
But, yeah.
So imagine if you could take ClickFunnels and marry it with MailChimp and your Flowdesk, and then bring in Facebook along with that. And then, by the way, let's run transactions. And what if we could send text messages and see all of the conversation, and whether it was text, Facebook, emails, or Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger, if you could have it all in one spot instead of having to go all to 5 places to see it. That's essentially what Go High Level did. So it's like all of those got together, they had a baby, and spit out this fancy CRM system. It sounds way too good to be true. And it was. Wow. And they're still progressing a ton. But the software they've built is they let you sign up for it. But if you're not an ad agency or an agency that does consulting, within about 30 to 60 days, they will reach out to you and tell you, we're sorry, you're not an agency, we're going to deactivate your account. And gotcha. I thought that was the stupidest thing. I'm like, what the heck? You got this person as a customer, and you're going to tell them we're going to cancel your account. But I was listening to a podcast the other day with the founder was kind of talking about it. And he said, here's the reality is you get all of these fancy software programs, and essentially each one of them is like a jet airplane. You go to the airport, and there's a pilot that knows how to fly that jet airplane. And pretty much every single person getting on that airplane is probably capable of flying that airplane if they went through the training and knew what they were doing, like that airplane pilot. But the problem that has persisted for years now with software is a software company spins up and they solve a problem and it's awesome. Like you said you were on MailChimp and then you went to Flow, whatever.
Yep.
And you had ClickFunnels or you had whatever. And essentially you can learn to run any one of those and you can be successful in that program. But giving somebody the keys to a jet airplane and saying, okay, go fly yourself to Minneapolis now from Salt Lake is not going to end well. And 99% of the time it doesn't. And so you have people that are signing up for these softwares and then they complain that it doesn't work. And it's not really that the software didn't work. I mean, sure, there's going to be stuff that was broken, but essentially you just didn't know how to run it right.
And to me, it's been that learning curve. I've had so
Yep.
many learning curves in 5 years where it's just one after the other after the other.
And you get tired, you get exhausted. And
You
so
do.
it's been probably, I would say it's been maybe 6-7 years that where I finally was able to. I am not a super techie person. I mean, you may sound like I'm that, but I'm not. And I finally forced myself to get in and build the website and do, and I'd break it still. And I'd have to call my guy that was the fancy, like, hey, I crashed the website. I mean, it happened last week to me still. I totally crashed the website and went down. And now I kind of know a little bit to get on with the guys at the host and they'll like save, you could like, phone a friend and they can bail you out of jail. But the reality is there's, you need to try and learn as much as you can. But the more you can consolidate into that one program, and this Go High Level. So it was about 3-4 months ago, I finally signed up to have an account. And because I have multiple business, so I've got my music business where we're doing a lot of e-commerce. I have a story thing where we sell, I mean, think of it like Chicken Soup for the Soul mixed with Paul Harvey stories. And, that's been really, I love Paul Harvey. Yeah. I'm finding that I'm getting old enough that most people don't know who Paul. I used to listen to the kid at noon every day.
Yep, on the radio.
Oh,
on the radio.
Yes. Anyway, so just this Go High Level tool, I've watched them for 3 or 4 years now, and even when they started, I really wanted to get something better because I was spending like $8,000-9,000 to send emails and have the automation, and it works because that's how I've gotten people from when they buy one sheet music. Now you go through an onboarding and you get to like me and I share stuff with you. And then, hey, by the way, you haven't bought this, here's the thing that you might like because you bought this other thing. And now I'm helpful in solving problems versus slimy sales guy trying to say, buy all my music books, Right. And so the automation pieces, all of that is in Go High Level as well. And the crazy thing is it's now affordable for like normal people. And so agencies, because I've got I own a travel agency. I have a tour company in Costa Rica. I've got software stuff that we're spinning up a new software now that nobody even knows about. So I've got all these different businesses, but I've learned so much from doing all these things that I thought, you know what, this is going to help a lot of people. So I've got an electrician that wired my recording studio. We're helping him do ads that are driving through this Go High Level program, and so the Facebook ad comes in, it automatically texts back and forth with the person to schedule an appointment for him. And it does it all. That's the calendar. That's another thing. The calendar is built right into this thing. So you're not, that's one per $10 a month or whatever, $5 a month thing that you're doing. Yep. And so I've signed up with that, and I've got, we've got about 7 or 8 different businesses that I'm helping. Some of them are mine, and I can still tell you, so I cannot move my music stuff over there yet, because it's not great at doing e-commerce on a high volume if you're doing lots of little sales. If I'm just selling like a one time, like a course, it has a whole course thing. It replaces Kajabi. So if you wanted a course thing that does all the emails and unlock stuff, all that's built in and it works great. So yeah, I mean, if you were wanting to coach or help people, you could sign up and learn that, or there's agencies out there. I've got this team in the Philippines that I've been kind of sending them through, boot camp, learning it, and they're getting pretty good at it, actually. And one of my hopes is that down the road, maybe I can help some musicians to figure out, to basically coach them along. But the done for you model is great. It's expensive though. And so I feel like from a coaching standpoint, even for you, I mean, you've seen it where somebody wants, they want it all done for them, and it just doesn't, they'll never be successful if they just slough off the thing that they need to learn to be good at. So
Right.
if you can help the person go in there and hold their hand a little bit and say, hey, it's not that scary. You really can build with WordPress, promise,
Right. Right.
The other thing on that Go High Level is it's got a full funnel builder. So if you don't want to have a WordPress site, it'll do basic website stuff for you. You can build your whole site in there. It's okay at that. There's not going to be all the fancy plugins, so don't ask it to do, spin circles, but who knows, in another year or two, AI will do it all for us probably too. So
I know.
so tired
Well,
of
even
hitting on AI. Ugh.
I know, even the place that I have that it's Member Vault that hosts my courses and all that, they now are they've done so much stuff too, where like you literally, I'm not going to do this because I still like some of the things on Bandzoogle for my music, but like you can use it as a website now.
Yeah.
Because the way they can personalize it, the way they've got a menu bar now, I mean, just everything like did not have that 5 years ago, so I can see where like, I think more places are trying to get this one stop.
There's not very many that are doing a great job of it. Go High
No,
Level
and
is white label. They white label it. So,
okay,
like Modern Musician, Michael Walker and those guys, you follow them at all?
I don't.
Okay. So he's got a software that he's built, but it's Go High Level that they've kind of customized and built some templates around. And again, they're basically an agency that's able to resell Go High Level. And you can go to, I think they've got like 10,000 plus agencies that'll sell it. And so my goal is I wanted it for us to help me and my businesses, but I knew that once the team knew how to help my stuff, we could help a whole lot of other people. And so people that I like, I'll say, hey, let's get you on here. And it's not very expensive. So, I mean, we're talking like $100 a month type of price, and it does everything. Yes. I mean, if you add up all the stuff you're probably spending money on, I'll bet you're spending way more than that on stuff, even as a basic, if you've got a basic process going on.
Well, yeah, I think everything I was doing with everything from my podcasting to my teaching to all of that, I think, yeah, it's closer to like 200 a month or something that I'm with everything. So
anyway,
yeah.
and then the other cool thing that I love about it is if I wanted to help somebody, so I've got a couple people that I've just said, hey, you know what, go try this for free for 2 or 3 months. I'm just going to give it to you. And it's costing, I'm spending $600 or $700 a month to have it.
Yeah.
So I've got to recoup my money, when we got people. The only other thing that they really charge for is text messages and emails. So how like MailChimp, they'll say, okay, you can send, up to so many emails, and have this many contacts. So Go High Level has unlimited contacts, which is awesome. And then for the emails, I priced out what they charge, and it was 1/5 the price of MailChimp. And I thought MailChimp's like, okay, that's the cheapest. And it's like 0.0007 whatever cents. I can send like 20,000 emails for, less than $10 or so.
Well, MailChimp, I started with them because they were free everything.
Yep,
and then they just kept raising price and then I was getting more subscribers. So I was
charge you more.
yeah. And so actually when I got on Flowdesk, it was in its what do you call it? When they first put out something, why can't I not think of the word?
Their
for
lifetime
that?
access where you're
So I got in on the cheap end of where I have unlimited, and now they just added also a checkout, and they've got lead pages on it. So it's decent. Although, like anything, you run into certain things where it's like, yeah, not fond of this piece of it, but
well, and having been in the software owner's shoes, we probably had 2,000 ideas that came in of people, and how things that people want. And then they, if they've done it right, they'll put it in there and you can vote on what is most important. And your customers basically tell you the biggest pain points. And that's where you throw your dev team to fix them. So, So anyway, that's awesome that you got a good software to do that. If you ever wanted to try out Go High Level, I'm more than, if you wanted to spin up an account, I can spin one up for free. The only thing that I'd have you pay for is what they charge me for. So it's like less than a half a penny, but it's Twilio's pricing. So it's just, the pricing is what it is. And it's like the bare bones. This is as cheap as it gets in the world.
Yeah.
And so it just pays right through them anyway. So it's not even me charging for it. It's, you're basically like a wholesaler getting it at wholesale price. So,
right. Well, and I appreciate that. For right now, I've got to just,
But if you've got a thing going right now, I would say stick with it
yeah,
and just go deeper on it. That's what you need to do. But if you're looking at artists that are trying to be like, oh, what should I do? There's some people that are out there doing their courses and they're charging thousands and thousands of dollars
I know.
to do the thing. And I've probably spent $40,000 to $50,000 on courses in the last 5 years.
Well, and I
And
know, and the only thing I have found with musicians is that it's they well, it depends on the right musician though. It's like anything, it's finding the right customer.
yeah.
Because you know what I mean? Like some musicians have the mindset of that they're going to invest in that, and then other musicians are, they won't pay $50 for something. So it's like, okay.
What one other thing I feel like that was really a game changer for me was soon you need to learn how to do stuff on your own, but you need to recognize what you're not good at
Mhm.
and really kind of put a value on your time. And so you could figure out how to fly any jet airplane out there, but if being an audio engineer is not your thing that you're great at, and you got a
Mhm.
guy at 65 an hour or $100 an hour, go pay to have that guy do his thing and make your stuff great. If it's building a website and you hate doing websites, don't do it. Go find somebody. And there's the thing that's really amazing. The Philippines has been a game changer for me. Hiring somebody in the US or, kind of can be really expensive. I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars. I had an ad agency I was paying for my music $5,000 a month
I
just to run
believe
my
that.
Facebook ads. That didn't count running the traffic. So I was spending another,
Yeah.
like we were spending $20,000-$30,000 a month on Facebook traffic on top of the $5,000 to run our ads for us. And the reality is there are people in other countries that are amazing and that are just looking for jobs. And the Philippines I've found has really smart people that maybe haven't been given an opportunity, but they have good internet usually, and they have a computer. And for the
Mhm.
most part, they're pretty dang good at speaking English too. Yeah.
Yes, I have seen that from a few that I've talked to, even from I know Bree has one of
Bree
her
has a couple of, I know
yeah.
she's got a couple of assistants. I think I actually encouraged her to get one, but there's a site called onlinejobs.ph.
Okay.
Have you ever looked at that before? Or
No.
let me, you know what? I'll just show you. How about I show you back end? I'll give you a demo tour. Let's see here. Got to pull up a website first. You're going to see the music I've been working. Oh,
Ah, poor wayfaring stranger. That's a pretty song.
and got to get my web page over here. Here we go. All right. You see me now?
Yes, I can.
So online jobs.ph. I'm just going to log in. There, you can get a free account, so you can search for free. So you could just go in and do this totally for free. What's a skill that you think would be nice to have help with? You said
Uh,
WordPress site, or what's
or edit a podcast because sometimes I just get tired of it.
podcast
I know
editing?
how to do it, but yeah, to get
I have
tired
a
of it.
guy over there that okay, so I just typed in podcast editor.
Mm-hmm.
So podcast manager, audio, video editing, $5 and $17 an hour,
Wow.
$454 a month if you wanted him half time.
Mm-hmm.
Outsourcing YouTube podcast editing, $850 an hour. Um, part-time work, 4 hours a day, podcast manager, $3.10 an hour.
Wow. Do you know, it's maybe a funny question, but do you know, I always want to make sure, because having been in other countries sometimes, that are poor, it's like I
Mm-hmm.
always want to make sure that I'm compensating people fairly.
Uh-huh.
So do these prices reflect that? Because I always think,
So they set their price. And so crazy story. So it's been about a year and a half I've been doing this. So a nurse over there will make about $2.80. So a nurse with an actual nurse that's
yeah.
qualified, about $2.80 an hour.
Wow.
You've got, I mean, somebody who makes $500 to $700 a month. I hired somebody, one of my guys, he's now he does all of the website improvement stuff. So every week we have a meeting where he goes into all of our different websites and we'll kind of focus on one, and he'll find broken links and things that aren't working. And he just
Mm-hmm.
found like 12 song PDFs that were corrupted somehow and weren't working. I don't know, I have no idea how he found those, but I've got to fix all of them now. He's awesome, but he was working for Kohl's credit cards in the Philippines, and he would leave his family on Sunday night. He'd drive into, I don't know, Manila or wherever it was he was going. It was like a 5-hour, 6-hour drive to get there on his scooter. He would work all week. He'd do, full days, we're talking like 14, 16-hour days calling. And he was actually a manager person there. And I want to say he was making, with all of his benefits, it came out somewhere around $4 an hour. And then he'd work 6 days a week. He'd get done on Saturday night. He'd drive home, get home super late on Saturday, and Sunday he'd be able to be with his kids until, after dinner. And then he'd go back to work for the whole week, and he'd be gone. And he'd had a little apartment that he'd share with other people there that worked. And yeah, I mean, so we're talking $5-6 an hour is a life changer.
Which is cool because I always think if there's ways that I can actually help people too in other countries, then I know work is good because work in the first place gives people value and purpose. So absolutely.
So John Jonas is the guy that, so I actually, my podcast guy, I think I pay him about $20 an episode, and he's not very good at tracking his hours. Actually, that looks like him right there. That is Jester, I think. That is totally Jester. Yep. So, and great kid. So he's doing work for $6 an hour. Now you know my guy. So if you want to call, I can connect you with Jester. But he's doing several podcasts for, he's not just doing work for me, but.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
So it's basically this LinkedIn for people in the Philippines, and they have over 1 million people on there with a profile.
That's amazing.
It's awesome. That just makes me laugh that he just popped up. Well, and so the other thing that's really helpful with this is do you know anything about disc profiles?
Disc profiles?
So it's like a personality profile.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes.
So basically, it depending on what you're trying to do, this steadiness and compliance, if you want somebody who's going to be dependable and follow through on stuff, you want to look for a really high steadiness and compliance. That's interesting that is not what he is. But what's good is he's really good at what he does, but he does it on his own time. And, we know it gets done on time, but he's, I can see exactly why he's the way he is, which is great, but he's a C2. Yeah. So they also have English, different levels. So C2 is the highest you can get. And so when you are hiring somebody, there's like a $99 course that they'll walk you through how to be successful in hiring and, how to, communicate best with them. Don't always take that for the truth. So what I've done is we just hired a travel agent person. We had 116 people apply for it on online jobs to be this travel agent assistant in about a 3-day time period. And so what I did is because there's no way I can talk to that many people. I don't have time to do that. So I asked everybody to do about a 2 to 3 minute video. And I just said, will you answer these 3 questions and then send me a Loom video? And so they had to, if they'd never heard of Loom, they had to figure out how to do that. And so that told me, are they tech savvy enough to figure something out without having directions? 2, when they're on the camera and talking and answering, I can tell, are they reading off of a script? Are they struggling to, are they just kind of natural? And it was very easy to cut it down to about 10 people. And then we interviewed about 4 or 5, and we had about 3 rock star people that we wanted to hire. And there you go. Kind of interesting.
Wow. Yeah. So, well, that's kind of cool to know, because I do think there's things that, especially as I get back into what I call sort of the new year, which for me is the fall. I still go on a school year in my head. Okay. I know most people don't, but anyway.
I should send you this video. So this was actually the owner, the guy that started Online Jobs. Hi, my name's so this is his son. He's actually serving a mission over there in this little tiny island, and he talks. And so I actually reached out. So he sent, John sent a thing out telling about one of the people that was about a week away from going and leaving his 2 little kids. And this is the house he lives in right here. So this is third world. This is Mark Jem's house. And John sent this thing out, and he said, my son has been around this forever. And he said, Dad, I would hire this guy his kid actually in high school had a $300,000 a year business that he built. So, okay, he's a sharp kid, right?
Yeah.
And he said, Dad, I would hire this kid. He's super smart. He's a hard worker, but he's a week away from leaving, and he's going to leave his wife and his kid, and he's going to go work in the city and only be here one day a week. And he goes, if there's any way you can help find this guy a job, so John, the dad, who sends out an email about once every other day or so, you can sign up and get his emails. He gives tips. It's really helpful too if you're thinking about it. So there's a tip for you right there. But he got over 100. He said, hey, I've never done this before, but this is what my son told me. If anybody's looking for a designer, somebody that's not super trained, but they're willing to kind of train him and give him a chance, let me know. And he had over 100 people email him within one day and say, hey, I'll hire him. And I emailed him as well. And I just said, hey, this is what my needs are. And I kind of explained some stuff. I invited John to go to Costa Rica with me too, so that probably helped. So that's, I ended up hiring him about 3 months ago, and he has learned a ton, but I had so this was the thing I saw this morning. I had no idea that was his house. I mean, I lived in Argentina and built houses that were like this for people, when I was just graduating from high school. And this is pretty stinking cool. So you know what I know, and it's about $500 a month, and he's full time, and I've completely changed his family, but it's going to change generations too, because now with the experience he's getting, guess what's going to happen? His kids are going to speak better English. They're going to be exposed to computer stuff. It's going to multiply and just change generations.
That's so cool. I love that. And I've been to, like I say, enough sort of third world countries too, just kind of on mission trips and other things that I've seen it. I've seen poverty. You know what I mean? Just real poverty, and where there's not opportunity.
Right. And that's the thing that, I can send you the link to this video, but he explains that the problem with the Philippines is they import everything, and they have no natural resources, to really export. The only thing they have to export is labor and their people. And so, in order to have that offset, to have enough stuff come into the country, they go and they work on cruise ships, and they go overseas to Dubai and all these other places, and they leave their families. And so it's really, really hard. Their parents, if you've been on a cruise before, you ever met some people in the Philippines?
I haven't yet. But so my mom taught Philippine doctors that came over to the US.
Awesome. So. Well, you've got to get on a cruise. You got to get on. Have you ever been to Alaska? You haven't been to Alaska probably either, right? So are you scared you're going to get seasick or what?
No, just haven't had the opportunity or time. So
you would love it, especially as a performer.
I'm sure I would. I pretty much love traveling. Like I've been in sort of unique countries in some ways, like Romania and Israel and Guatemala, and
What do you want to know the secret to coming and doing a trip for free?
What's that?
So one of the reasons I started this travel agency, so it started because I was down in Costa Rica on a whitewater kayaking trip, and I met these guides that were amazing, and I wanted to help. I just felt like I was supposed to help them, and it was the dumbest idea ever. And so I'm laying in jungle camp, and I'd just been overhearing the guides say, hey, the owner says we're not doing any more kayaking trips down here because we're just going to do Groupon adventure trips now. And two of the guides had been on the Olympic kayak team. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So these guys, this was they were so good. And they'd just been told by the owner, who lived in the Virgin Islands, that they weren't going to buy any more kayaks. There was about 6 kayaks that were still like floatable, and the rest of them were what you'd expect, cracked and just not nice. And so, exactly what I thought we were going to get. But I overheard Walter talking in Spanish, because I speak Spanish. Overheard him, and he told his buddies, hey, this is our last one. He says we're not doing anymore, and they were just crushed. And then Walter came over, and he didn't realize everybody gone to bed. I'm sitting out and looking over the river or the jungle, and in this little rocking chair. And he came over after he'd been finished talking, and he just be in front of me. He's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were here." And so I just kind of went into consulting mode. I just sold my business, and I'd done tons of consulting and websites. And so I just got talking to him like, okay, if you're going to leave and start your own thing, because he told him, I'm going to go do my own thing. I've been going to business school for 5 years. He used to actually raft into the jungle camp, run 4 miles up the road to catch a bus. After they got him in for dinner, he'd catch the bus in, go to school from 7:30 to 10. And then he'd go home and sleep. He'd get up at 3:30 in the morning, and he'd catch the bus, go back to the top of the road, run down the 4 miles down the dirt road to get back to where people are waking up at 6 in the morning, and then raft out in the morning. And it was one of these, I just was like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to help this guy. and so I started, I got home and we connected over Zoom calls, and he was almost done with his business degree, and he was going to try and do his own thing. So he'd been working 16-hour days.
Yeah.
365 days had gone by. He hadn't had a day off, and he had a little 2-year-old at home.
Of course.
And, yeah. And just amazing guy. And so I started, helping him with all these things. And I've seen too many people try, talk about doing a business and then they don't follow through. I mean, you've never seen that, right? And
right.
so, I'm putting all these like roadblocks up and saying, you better go talk to the attorney and find out this and this. And if you're going to start your own travel company, I still had no intentions of like having a travel company. And when I'd gone back that night in the jungle, to my little cabin thing that we had, my buddy that was with me, he's a retina surgeon. And so he's got lots of money. And I told him, I said, well, this is the last kayak trip. And that night he'd be like, well, I'll just buy him kayaks. This is the best trip I've ever been on. And I was like, yeah, go to sleep. That's a dumb idea. Go to sleep. So like 2 months later, I'd helped Walter and he'd done everything. And I kind of said, well, if you do all this stuff, I'll see if I can help you get some money and I'll help you build a website. And I hadn't even told my wife about it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That maybe wasn't so good.
No, it's not a good thing. But we're going to Costa Rica in like 2 weeks, and she likes going down there now. But
yeah.
Anyway, we ended up just craziest idea. We're helping these guys out. And as we started the company, our first goal was to get his little 2-year-old son Ian a yard with some grass instead of being in this little cement cinder block. I mean, you've seen them, this moldy cinder blocky place. Not that it wasn't nice, I mean, it's okay. You can live fine, but I just wanted that kid to have somewhere to run around and a swing set. And we did that in the first year. We got there and mission accomplished. And we're 6 years in now, and I've still not paid myself once. So we've reinvested everything back in. We are completely debt free. So any of the money that I got from Dave, we're completely paid back and debt free. And we have 17 families down there now that are working or employed because of us. And we just bought a bus last week. And it's actually not me that bought it. Walter saved all of his tips and he was able to get a loan to go get this $45,000 16 passenger van, brand new, for his guy, Jonathan, that had to work 16 hours, 6 days a week, driving bus. He's this awesome guy, and he's now going to be our driver full time for that. And so anyway, with that, we ended up having a travel agency. We thought, well, we got to figure out a travel business. So I started up a travel agency. And so if you want to go on a cruise, I know a guy.
May take you up on it at some point. Yeah.
But the way you do it for free is if you've got, so have you done any mastermind groups or like inner circle groups with your people you've coached?
I had something. It really wasn't a mastermind. It was just a group coaching that was on a very limited level.
Got it. Yeah. So if you think about who your favorite 12 people are that would be really fun to go hang out with, and it could even be, like Bree would be awesome to take on a trip like that.
Yeah.
You organize. Our team can take care of all of the logistics, all of the details, even take care of all the phone calls. I've got my people in the Philippines that help me now. Nice. And if you sell a certain number, if you get about 12, 14 people on a cruise, you go for free.
Oh, wow.
What's called a tour conductor credit, and you go for free.
Wow. That could be cool.
Well, there you go.
Maybe I'll have to keep that in mind for the next year. I've got to this point. Sorry, my cat is. I don't know what my cat is doing.
Hey, buddy,
we have animals.
Oh, here's Zuko. He came back in.
That's your little doggy. Oh, cute.
He's like the most chill dog ever. Come sit up here.
He looks like it.
I can tip him upside down and he won't even like flinch. Is that crazy? He's just like
what kind of dog is he?
He's a Lhasa Apso.
Oh, I've heard of that.
So
I've never seen one. So
they came from Tibet, and the Tibetans gifted the Lhasa Apsos to China, I guess, and they bred them to be Shih Tzus.
Oh, that's what I've seen more of here.
From the Shih Tzus, yeah. So, but look at this. I mean, he's just. Yeah. You tell me a cat that would let you do this, or even a dog that would let you do this.
My cat might, because he's pretty mellow too. But look at him.
Anyway,
Animals are the best. Well, Jason, thank you for just all the help, and then for having me on your on your
yeah, no, it'll be
podcast
fun.
out. So
It'll
appreciate
be a
that.
couple weeks before they get it. I mean, they'll probably start working on it next week, but I think we're like 3 or 4 weeks out. You
No
don't have
problem.
any like special launch or anything coming up that we want to coincide with that helps you though, right?
I don't right now. Like I
Okay.
say, I'm honestly, to be honest, just with my mom, everything this last year, we were literally going every single day to her nursing home for like 5 months. And now my dad, he's here in the cities too, in Minneapolis, but he's doesn't drive. And so
Mhm. You
there's
got
just
your,
a lot. Yeah, there's just, it's like this season of like, I've just realized it's here to help my parents, and I'm okay with that.
yep.
But there's just some things that I'm putting on hold for now,
Well,
just
it's an
because,
emotional. We're going through it. It's an
yeah,
emotional
you are.
drain. I mean, it hurts because you
Yep.
can't do anything, and you do everything you can, but you just it is what it is, right? It's
Right. And
life.
like with my mom, like every bit of, time that I spent with her, I don't regret any of it. And
Yep.
I don't with my dad now either, because it's like he's, I don't know how much longer. Does he have a year? Does he have three? I don't know. He's
Yeah.
87, so I just, but I'm like, it's okay. And I still have enough things in my bucket list of things I want to do down the road. It's like I feel young enough or youthful enough to, I mean, I know my age, but I'm just saying, it's like I'm going to keep going as long as I can. So,
With what you're doing, I mean, the fun thing I've learned with travel is people want to go do a thing like go to an Alaska cruise or go on a Caribbean cruise, but there's this like fear factor of doing something for the first time, and if they have somebody to say, hey, it's okay, I'm going to take you, we're going to do this together, all of a sudden people that would never have dared do it are doing this thing,
do
and they just
it.
fall in love with it, and it's so fun to see people. It's almost like when you have kids that they see the thing for the first time, and
Oh, yeah.
it's that experience. It's the same thing a little bit with travel and helping
Well,
people experience that.
I'm sure you get a blast out of that, and I feel that way. Like I'm actually pretty like I've tried things. Like I lived in Guatemala when I was 17 for a short
Nice.
time. So I don't know. I'm not. I've done a lot of firsts throughout different decades. So I'm kind of like, okay.
Well, if you want to come, my favorite trip that the team does in Costa Rica is our momcation trip. They do mom and daughters, and they go rafting, and they go into jungle camp a lot of times, and they go do massages take them to do massages on the beach. But they take everything from the time you step through the airport, you're picked up until you're dropped off. It's
Well, and
awesome.
I don't have kids, but I do have a niece and nephew. So I'm like, sometimes those kind of trips can be
Yeah.
great too. So
So
yeah.
yeah. If
Well,
you know anybody that wants to do them, I love helping people experience that. So
that's seriously good to know, because sometimes, I have thought about things in the past of like, what if I ever did get like a mastermind thing together? But it's more, yeah, the planning of it. Like, oh my gosh, I've moved across. Like, I lived in LA and I did that move by myself and back, and it was a lot. It
yeah.
was doable, but it's just a lot. So if you can
Well,
have
those mastermind
resources,
groups, typically people that want to participate in that, everybody's got a story.
yeah,
And
that's
if you
true.
go, I mean, you could talk for an hour or two, no problem, and tell people stories. But when you have, the magic number I feel like is somewhere between like 10 and 16. You just bond with people. You start getting more than 16, and now somebody's not really
Oh,
part of the group, and it's just a different dynamic.
yep,
But
smaller.
with that number, everybody wants to, they have something to share anyway. So let them share. Say, you know what, hey, we're going to have 15 minutes where when you come on this trip, we're going to take some time, but your job is to have 10 to 15 minutes where you can teach the group anything you want that you think would be helpful for them.
Yeah,
And then from there, you're going to get 5 to 10 minutes to ask the group any question, and
yeah.
just be as vulnerable as you want to be and get advice from people. Just tell us what your biggest problem is and you need help solving. And you got all these like caring people that now bond because now you're all invested in helping each other. It's so cool to see happen.
Well, and in person, it's like that's
It's so
something we've
good.
missed so much, in the last year. So it's like, yeah,
You would love it. Your personality, all you need to do is just invite. I think most of the time it's just inviting people, saying, hey, I'm putting a group together. We're going to go, and you can call it a mastermind or whatever you want.
right,
But if you call it a mastermind, then it's a business write-off.
right. I do that with other travel. So yes, I was like, if
Absolutely.
I can do a gig someplace, okay.
Done. So anyway, well,
Anyway,
take care of
thank
your
you,
dad,
Jason.
and great chatting with you. I know we went way longer than I planned on, but
Yeah,
this was really fun. It's great to get to know you.
yeah. Thank you, Jason.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Have a
We'll
great
see you.
weekend.
Bye-bye,
Okay,
Tara.
bye.